You can't separate those two. I mean, you can, and it's going to be catastrophic for you. And it's going to be catastrophic because this issue of money is something the devil takes very seriously. And so, where we are not clear on finances, we're not clear on the grounds of the security of our life. And so when you really observe your Bible carefully, finances is an a priori with God as a substratum of the relationship between God and man. So if your theologically peripheral vision is broad enough to keep up with me, because I teach from the totality of Scripture, God's relationship with Adam and Eve was one where business was already a priority before they were made. He didn't create Adam and Eve and then create the heavens and the earth. He created the heavens and the earth, and he established a business before he created mankind. And when he created mankind, he employed mankind in his business as a co-partner of an entrepreneurial empire agenda. That's your Bible. And I've often said it, God didn't start with an institution. He didn't start with a company. He didn't start with a Fortune 500 stock market. He started with a man and a woman. And so in God's system of economy, relationship is more important than anything. That's point number one, if you're going to be taking principles. Point number two is the best model of stewardship relationship with God, not the only one, but the best one from a biblical perspective, is one where you understand the real principles of entrepreneurial integrity. The real principles of entrepreneurial integrity, which entrepreneurism is about being able to be self-governed in the context of money making. Entrepreneurism is a principle of self-governance for the purpose of being able to manage your own domain of economic responsibility with minimal impedances by other external structures that may be good or bad relative to your economic destiny. Did that make some sense? And so as I was talking with my lawyer up there, I teach my grandkids now, and I try to teach my kids that you need to know what it means to be entrepreneurial in your mind. Because once you understand entrepreneurism, you can employ the principles of being an entrepreneur across almost any situation in your life. Entrepreneurism is scaling models that are set up to employ you for their own benefit and pinching you off just enough to exist. Did that make sense? Entrepreneurism is a mindset. It's an understanding of how to look at big pictures, see them for what they are, and then devise strategies for scaling that so that you can walk in your liberty and become someone who is setting up structures to help other people. For God, Adam and Eve were supposed to be his chief representatives in creating models that would be replicated around the world. Does that make sense? Right. So, but to be entrepreneurial in your understanding of finances, you have to be what Proverbs 12:24 calls diligent. So here's what the verse will say. I'll just touch on a little bit and make my way through our outline because, again, I don't want to be here. There should be a point number one if somebody did this. A cute little emblem here. I like that. Is that cool? Growing your money. But then I need the actual outline. My outline is a newer one. I like that. My outline should be in there. You should find it because everybody got sent my outline. It's the same as what we have here, Mind Your Own Business, 7/19/25. There it is. That's it. Very good. So in your outline, I talk about there are three kinds of people among us. There could be more, but I'm just going to enunciate these three and you guys can fill it in. So you have the person that is already financially sound and therefore secure in their sense of where they are with their money. That might be some of us in here, and there's nothing wrong with that, and definitely nothing wrong with it, and I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. I'm glad this is recorded. So just assume that among 100 people, there are going to be 30 or 40 people who are relatively secure in their economic situation. That is America, okay? So understand that. Also embrace that as an optimism, particularly if you're a young person, that within the soil of the American culture, with all of its opportunities, it's not impossible for me to get into a situation where I am fundamentally, financially confident and secure. Did that make some sense? It's important to know that. Can I still have my first point? Oh, you guys are working some through. All right, you guys have your outline. All right, so financially sound and therefore secure. You can raise questions about that a little bit later, but if you don't understand what that means, that's something for you to research. Am I financially sound and therefore secure? And the only other thing that we might take into consideration under subpoint A is in need of remaining right with God. So I'm going to juxtapose, and we're going to see the scriptures in a moment. If I've gotten my system of finances right, and I'm pretty secure in my financial principles, and I'm doing all right with God, I'm not broke and robbing people, I'm not so absolutely wealthy that I'm walking around like a delusional megalomaniac, which is what happens when you have too much, then therefore the only thing I need to do if my system is working is make sure I remain right with God. Because again, as I'm going to tell you, the goal of the devil is to actually misrepresent stewardship. And you have to know that. All right, subpoint B. The other kind of person among us will be people who are struggling immensely with their earnings. You're going to always have that. People who are struggling immensely with their earnings. That's a long conversation. And it can straddle several categories. It can straddle ignorance, it can straddle negligence, and it can straddle fraudulent external factors imposed upon them. Okay, so you can just embrace that right now. Again, I'm just talking principles. So you got some who are financially sound and therefore secure. They just have to be careful that they don't get out of line with God, because God can pull the plug anytime. Because remember, stewardship is a relationship. Struggling immensely with earnings, and they are in need of two kinds of wisdom, practical and spiritual. Practical and spiritual. Everybody needs practical and spiritual wisdom, do we not? Yeah. Even the wealthiest. The third category, there is the person that is hungry to learn, hungry to grow, and ready to better their situation. That's the third category. Those are the only three categories I'm considering now. There are nuances all between them, but the third category is the person who is ready to ask the questions, seek the pathways, and knock on the door that makes itself available to prepare them for being good stewards of finances. That's the third category. So look at, again, Proverbs 12:24. Can you pull that up? I want to just touch on that. So Proverbs 12:24 is a promise with an inherent warning. It's a promise with an inherent warning. The hand of the diligent shall bear rule. That's a promise. The inherent warning is, but the slothful shall be a slave. Now notice what he's talking about. The freedom of self-designation, that's what bearing rule means, versus the stricture and confinement of being somebody's slave. Do you see that? Yes. Right, and that is exactly the battle of the gospel for the human race, period. Either we're operating out of the freedom wherewith Christ has set us free, or we're slaves of a satanic system that controls us from the womb to the tomb. And the difference between the two are two attitudes. One is the attitude of diligence or the attitude of slothfulness. That simple bifurcation is helpful, and that's how Solomon works. Solomon will say, this results in that, but that results in that. And those are easy binaries to work through, particularly when you're simple people. And you and I are simple people, are we not? All right, so I'm going to keep it simple. If you are not committed to diligence, you will not experience the freedom of autonomy and self-governance under God. That's just so obvious, isn't it? Right, so there are some people who have to be taught diligence. And there are other people who have it innately as a trait, and they simply have to learn how to guide that motivation, that drive, that energy that leads to discovery. But diligence is an energy. Diligence is a drive. It's a passion. It's a motivating factor for pursuing the discovery of what is needed, to know what is needed in order to arrive at your goal. Diligence is not an ipso facto characteristic with all human beings. And in fact, the other quality of being slothful is far more the larger representation of most human beings by nature. Most human beings by nature are slothful. We're inclined to laziness. And this is how you can know that when conditions are set up by which someone will tell you, I will take care of you, I got all the answers, just be my servant and you'll be fine. Or you can have this freedom and you can have this self-designation and you can have these resources and blessings, but you are going to have to work very hard for it. Most people take the latter. That's the human experience. And this is why people who are opportunistic, who may very well be diligent and set up models of economic reciprocation businesses, trap lots of people and bring them into the slavery paradigm, because most people will be willing to work for a nickel as long as they can just kind of have a subsistence. This has already been explained and understood in all of the archives of psychology and sociology for thousands of years. This is why we have the world that we have, where most people are poor and there are only a handful of wealthy barons that control substratums of economic models. Did that make sense? All right, so that verse there is a promise with a warning. And so it's really getting at our attitude and our motivation. And so if a person is not motivated, this is not a happy verse. Y'all got what I just stated? And that person now has to work on not the external conditions that have them in a constricted economic precarious situation, but the internal conditions that reciprocate that external precipitous precarious situation. Does that make sense? At a certain point in all of our lives, when we're dealing with things from a theological or spiritual standpoint, we have to come to discover largely the condition I am in is because of me. Yeah. Right, and if we're not, and that is fundamental to the gospel, is it not? And if I don't deal with that, then I won't have a legitimate course to something better. All right. So having said that, the three categories, I put that out there. Maybe we'll have some Q&A to talk it through. I want to just go into a few ideas around financial responsibility for the people of God. Again, these are simple principles. I'm not going deep now. We hope to have these courses for the next 6 or 7 months, every month like this, and then I'll go deeper. I'm just laying the foundation, and then Duke will talk to you guys about finances, and if it resonates with you, good. Then we'll have a Q&A session, and we can talk things through. All right, this is nothing but information. That's all we're doing here, and this is what we've always done with grace. Grace has never been a portal for helping people make money so it can return back to grace. I want you guys to be clear on that now. We are notoriously uninterested in being known for making money. That's me. I am notoriously uninterested in being known for making money because I don't care about that optic at all. It's the problem with America. Consumerism is the problem with America, if that makes sense. But my granddaddy told me about what it takes to make sure I can eat and have a roof over my head, and he just simply said what the scriptures are going to tell you. Boy, go to work. That wasn't hard. All right, so under financial responsibility for the people of God, it needs to be reminded that stewardship is God-given. Every dime you acquire, good or bad, has an economic, not an economic, but a moral and ethical corresponding relationship to it. Every dime you find, every quarter you discover, every dollar you make, good or bad, we'll talk about that later, the black market. We'll talk about that because that's a real world. And it bleeds over into the white market, okay? No pun intended with the black-white thing. I mean, there's 1,000 shades. And it's the real world. But it is God-given, and this is what 1 Chronicles 29:14 teaches us, and this should be a conscientious principle for every believer. This is how David worshiped God. David says, but who am I? That's David. And what is my people? That's the church. That we should be able to offer so willingly after this sort. He's just now exalting God for an offering given by the people of God because the temple was established and the worship was absolutely phenomenal and everybody is vertically centered. And all David is about to express is something that you and I need to know. He says, for all things come from you. Do you see it? All things come from you, and of thine own have we given thee. That's all I want to say about that. When it comes to money, you're going to be accountable to God for it. I'm not going to drill it down. I'm not going to get into condemnation. That's not the point here. The point here is that when God built this world out, he built it out for it to be able to produce for us to make a living. That's what God did. All right. And so David is exalting God for that. That should be the attitude of the people of God. The other principle is Romans 11:36. And you should inculcate this too, because this here is the principle of divine reciprocity. Paul is saying the same thing that David said. For of God and through him and to him are what? All things. That's the cyclical principle. So praise God from whom all blessings flow. Right? That's how we should be thinking about what Jesus calls the unrighteous mammon, which is another study. But that framing that Christ is employing around money is to help you understand the danger of it, the danger of money. All right. So point number 2 in our outline, as we think about financial responsibility for the people of God, not only is it God-given, but it's to be managed what? Faithfully, right. So Ecclesiastes 8:15 is not the best verse, but it will work. So let's presuppose that, you and I are in a situation where God has entered into a covenant with us and he's given us everything we need. The only thing he tells us to do is be faithful with it, right? You can go, just be faithful with it. Then I commended mirth. This is what Solomon said. I commend mirth. Now, do you guys know what mirth means? Happiness. I commend mirth. I totally agree with him. I don't want to be going around sad all the time. I certainly don't want to go around mad all the time. I don't want to be compelled to anger all the time. I don't want to be under the burden of being grieved all the time. That's what Jabez said. Lord, don't bring me to grief because I'll kill somebody. That's what wars are about. That's what wars are about. Propaganda that leads people to anger and hostility and hatred and willing to extirpate each other. It is really true that if you can create conditions for people where they're happy, they're less inclined to fight. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right. All right. So then I commended mirth. I'm with you, Solomon, because a man hath nothing better under the sun than to eat. Now, we do understand the a priori principle of eating. Right. You got to work, and then you get to eat. right? And to drink. Those are two sides of the, restoration principle for our physiology. Eat and drink, and to be what? Merry. For that shall abide with him of his what? Labor, the days of his life, which God giveth him under the sun. Do you see it? That's a whole economic system in relationship between that person and God. God means for us to work so that we can eat and be happy. That's what he means. That is the objective for God on the earth. We can stratify that. I'm not doing that with you because I'm not here to kind of pour into you deep theological insights. But how logical is it that the Bible would say the fundamental objective for a happy human race is that they walk in an order with me, that my resources become a means for them to sustain their body? Right? And as we've been taught many times, right? As long as I got food and raiment, therewith to be content. Isn't that what God said? Right. He has given us the secret to personal contentment right there. And that's called the equilibrium of operating out of a healthy economic system. Makes sense, right? All right. So let's go on to the next point so I can get through these observations. Thirdly, as I stated before, not only is it God-given, not only is it to be managed faithfully, we have to do what? Got to give account for it. All right, so let's just read 5 verses in Luke 12, verses 16 through 21. I'm not going to expand on that. I'm just laying these out for you. As a child of God, the reason why you want to understand how economics works is so that you can be on the right side of the triune God when it comes to the end of your life, particularly if you have been blessed with resources placed into the sphere of your personhood. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plenty. What? There it is. Isn't that a blessing? That's what he just said, right? Now, we know that the ground can't bring forth fruit if God doesn't bless the ground. That ground made that man a rich man. Being rich is not a natural curse. Y'all know that. Religious church have been talking about that forever. Pentecostal churches and, they've been talking about that forever. Like, to be rich is actually to be godly. We're not taking it that far. But we are saying that God's blessings do redound to millions and millions and millions of people having so much surplus that not only are they able to live in the contentment of that surplus, but now they can be the agape of God to other human beings. Am I making sense? All right. So, verse 17 through 21 says, and he thought within himself, that's the problem. That's probably the next meeting we're going to have. He thought within himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. So now we understand a kind of narcissistic trap setting in, do we not? This takes us back to now either malfeasance or negligence or ignorance or something much more maniacal, right? He don't even know what to do. Right outside his doors are poor people everywhere. But somehow he's saying, I don't know what to do with all this money. All right, so I have no room where to bestow my fruits. Give them away. And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, now eat, drink, and be merry. Now he twisting the scriptures. The calamity of this verse is that God is not in any of his thoughts. Do you see it? I've taught this many times. Again, I'm not going to be here long because I want to hear from Duke. This here is what we call the soul man versus the spiritual man. Haven't I taught y'all that? That's the dichotomy. The man who only lives for the fulfillment of his soulish, nephesh pleasures. He's not dialoguing with God. He's not getting God's worldview on this. He's not saying, Lord, what shall we do with this excess and abundance? Because my life does not consist in the abundance of the things I possess. I'm happy with you, oh God. Food and raiment I'm content. But obviously you have blessed my barns. There must be a need. Help me to redistribute according to needs. Does that make sense? All right, so notice what the next verse says. But God said unto him, now here come God. At the end of his life, God shows up. Y'all see that? All right, so now this is not really true. I love the parables of our Lord Jesus. You have to be an inquirer in the parable because the lessons are in the inferences. They're not explicit. They're in the inferences. How is it that God didn't show up in this man's life until he's almost dead? Because that man did not want God in his life. Right? The wicked saith within my heart, there's no fear of God. The wicked say no to God. They spend all their time driving the thoughts of God's sovereignty out of their mind, so they're operating according to their own volition. Do y'all see that? And God will allow, obviously, in this broken world system, men and women and families to be rich for, millenniums, who are saying there is no God, or worse, we are God. This is why we're headed towards transhumanism. But this text is teaching you that God still employs the fundamental blessing of blessing the land, and generally he's doing it for others, but he's calling on people to steward with him in that. And this rich man has ended his life seeking money, and now he's about to come up real short, isn't he? Now, the text goes on to say, but God said unto him, you fool, this night your soul shall be required of you. Then whose shall those things be which you have provided? See that? Right. So now the rich man has deceived himself into thinking that he was the one that provided those things for himself, and that they were his alone without God having anything to say about it. He also presupposed that he knew the date of his death, and it was going to be a long time down the line. There's so many inferences to draw out of this for us to learn the folly of people who walk in the darkness of their own self-designation. All right, verse 21. So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Do you see that? That's the fundamental principle. And it would be Matthew 6:33, first seek ye the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness, and everything else will be added. The only thing I'm saying here in this concept of a theological reflection on money is that you and I are going to live and we're going to die. We're going to live either working in negotiation with God for the things we need for this life, and if he should bless us abundantly, it would be logical that he's blessing us beyond what we need so we can help others, which is going to move me into my final set of points that we can talk about if you want to in the Q&A. I need to get out the way. And this is under what I am calling the plan is fivefold. You guys see that? The plan is fivefold. The first part of the plan requires earning money faithfully, earning money carefully. You guys see that? All right, so the first thing is about earning money, right? Inferred in that is not stealing. I ain't gonna be there a long time, but the first one, therefore, is earning. That's gonna put you back at diligent mode, because earning is the law of sowing and reaping. It's a principle of reciprocity. But once you are in the cycle of sowing and reaping, you can thank God for the outcome of the fruit that you've sown in, because that's what God promised in the Genesis narrative, to bless the seed time and the harvest. And that's a principle across so many different things. Second one, and we can talk about that later too. The second one is that once you earn your money, these are my principles, I will defend them. The next thing you need to do with that money is what? Save that money, and you want to save that money wisely. I can talk about it in the Q&A, and we'll do that. Save that money wisely, because there is an unwise approach to saving money, and I'll warn you against it. The third one is invest money prudently. Do you see it? So earn, save, and then invest. That's going to be kind of where Duke is going, invest money. And I'm saying you got to do it how? Prudently. All right. I could talk a long time about that. The other thing that you and I want to do is use money what? All right. So, and I'll talk about this when I finish this final point. Use money. Use money thoughtfully. Yeah, you got to really think that through. Why? Because as we have just stated, money is not an amoral factor, an amoral component in your life. Every dime you acquire, every quarter you find, every dollar you make obligates you to a moral, ethical choice. And you know that. It tugs on you. It tugs on you. You find a dime and you ask the question, where did it come from? You put it in your pocket, which is fine because it's not associated with any obvious source. Then you got to still ask the question, what should I do with this dime? That's a moral, ethical responsibility in our conscience. Doesn't make sense. Very good. So then the final one is going to be give money what? Right. Give money spiritually. Almost done. Give spiritually. All right. So there are a lot of people who take these kind of principles and do them differently. I don't care. Here is my thought process around it. My thought process goes like this. I know that I have to earn money because that's what God has called me to do in both Adams, okay? He's called me to be diligent, to work, and to acquire as a consequence of the principle of sowing and reaping. I'm happy about that. I have a legacy of that in my own family, so I do understand working hard from a very young child. That's fine with me. I love that. It has so many kind of therapeutic, psychological, spiritual, and moral and sociological benefits. Would you agree? I think the salt of the earth, in my opinion, are working people. I love working people, all right, across so many levels. And so earning money carefully is going to really get into, for us later, about the origins of money. Where does money come from? What is money, right? What is the systems that are employed to create an economy? Because that's a quite different economy. What is an economy? And is an economy something that is static? Is it constant? All right, so I'm going off on my tangent a little bit. Is it constant and does it remain? See, because when I'm talking about earning money carefully, it means I have to really know the landscape and history of how money works to determine whether money is a constant or is it an ebb and flow. Does it come and go? Does money always exist? Am I making sense? Does money have a filter or a set of mediating principles that makes it difficult for you and I to acquire money? And if it does, I need to know all that. I need to know all that in the process of earning money. Because what if I'm committed to earning money, but I'm not being careful about it? I'm going to end up somebody's slave. That's what Proverbs 12:24 told me. That's what it told me. All right, so it's very important. Let me see if I can just finish this thought on up because I need to get out the way. So when I use the term earn, I'm presupposing that we're ready to go out and make an honest living. That's 1 Thessalonians 4:11 and 12. Leave that alone. Don't go there. And then I'm talking about saving money wisely because I already know that money is an organism within a complex ecosystem that diminishes on its own. Money does not retain its value. I'm teaching my 3 to 5-year-old grandkids this right now. Which one is more important, the quarter or the dollar? right? The dollar, the dollar, the dollar. And I say, well, actually, the quarter in a minute is going to be more than the dollar. So I have to teach him that money has an amorphous characteristic to it, because it's a delusion to think $100 is the same across the world. Y'all keeping up with me? Yeah. So every day the intrinsic value of money is going up or down, predicated upon a very fixed, complex system. And your job is to be wise about it, to maintain the value of that numerical data point. Because what if you have $100,000 in the bank right now? I got to get down. Duke, you got to get ready to come up. What if you have $100,000 in the bank right now? I got $100,000. Nah, you only got about 20. Oh, you ain't got but about 20. And I guarantee you can't just go to them today and ask for that 20 and they give it to you unless you got a really good relationship with that bank, because the system is set up for your money to be used everywhere else in the world but being available for you. Am I making some sense? Oh, yeah. Right, so they have you in a rigid system of subsistence and existence while letting you feel like you got plenty money so long as you operate within these parameters. That's okay for now, but it's going to get worse. And that's why I'm talking to you about this. Because you and I need to know what it's like, as other countries have, for their economy to crash. What do you do when your economy crashes? Do you understand what I just stated? Other countries know this. We don't know this because we've been living in an inflation since 2008. What we've been living in is a delusion, and we like being deceived. All right, so the other thing that I want to touch on so that Duke can get to talking is using money thoughtfully is going to incorporate everything that I said. I'll get back to these, but giving spiritually. Giving spiritually. And what that means is, and I have it in the outline, can you slide that up a little bit so they can see? Is that the farthest go? Because I got charities. Yeah, you get a dime raise, you get a dime raise. So giving spiritually is about children of God understanding the non-negotiable principle of supporting the kingdom of God. Again, I'm not going to go into that deeply because I know you guys have learned a lot about that. This is not a sales pitch. All I'm going to say is that God is serious about whether or not every dollar you get, you simply put it into some kind of idolatrous utopian scam versus advance his kingdom. Do you understand what I just stated? Because what he would know is, if you actually believe that money comes from him, but you're engaging in promoting an idolatrous utopian culture, you actually don't believe that. Did that make sense? You don't believe that. You don't believe that. If you actually believe that your relationship with God is one where it is a partnership of reciprocation, the money is flowing from God to you and then through you into causes that glorify God, which takes it back to God. So that in the end, God actually is negotiating with you the reward that comes from you partnering with him in the kingdom. That's why the text said, store up treasures in heaven. Isn't that what it said? Right. And all I want to say with that is probably a very sticky area for Christians, particularly in the West, is the idolatry of unrighteous mammon. So we can have a conversation on that. Come on up, Duke. It's your turn. Y'all give Duke a round of applause. You got a mic? Now, there was a second mic up there that should have hooked you up. So I'm going to take this down. You can put that there so I can put my stuff. Oh. This your phone?
Yes, it is. Just in case you get a call, you know. No? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello, hello, hello? Give me a second. Let me make sure it's on. It's on. All right, maybe I'm not speaking loud enough. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah. All right. It is good to be here. Thank you all for having me. And thank you, Pastor Jesse, for allowing me to try to help people save money and just understand how money works, right? We're going to be talking about put your retirement plan to work. Honestly, why I'm here is because I love my brothers and sisters. And as far as money is concerned, it is not for ourselves, but it is for the Lord, right? Let's get to the next slide. Let's see. Give me 2 seconds. All right. Give me a second. Yeah, I can. Just give me a second, though. All right. There we go. It's working now. All right. So, first and foremost, my name is Dukins Talandier, also Dukins Holmes. They're both correct. My full name is Dukins Trental Talandier Holmes, just so you know, because a lot of people know me by Duke Holmes, right? But just want to make sure you guys know that. I work for Edward Jones. That's a financial broker, right? And they allow you to buy, sell stocks, mutual funds, bonds, etc. With that, I'm a financial advisor. So what does a financial advisor do? Well, it's someone that advises you on money, on funds. Sorry, give me a second. It's just like a fitness instructor, all right? And so you have a fitness coordinator that will create a plan for you, help you work out, and then help you develop as far as your muscles are concerned. Financial advisors do the same thing, but with finances, all right? So we look at your goals, we look at where you want to be, create a plan with that, and then we actually execute on that plan and partner with you over a lifetime. Got a lot going on in my head. So one of the things that Pastor Jesse hit on was earn, save, invest, use, and give. My practice is built off of that. It's built off of faith, family, and then freedom. And that freedom part has multiple components. It has finance included in it, and it also has fitness or health, right? These two things feed into the rest of it. So faith is the most important, right? I think we'd all agree on that. As far as our finances are concerned, how does that support family? How does that support faith? That's what you have to start thinking about. Well, with your finances, if you're able to provide, because we're all providers, right? We need to be able to provide for our family members. And then we need to be able to pass that on, right? To help them in the future, right? Additionally, as far as the finances help your faith, it's about giving. Ultimately, we want to go from earning, saving, investing, using, to giving, to being able to provide for others. But if you stay in a place where you just need to receive all the time, you'll never ever get to that point where you can give, right? You'll end up giving your money away, and then you need to ask for somebody else to help you out, all right? We want to get to a point where we're all providers, providing for somebody else's care, somebody else's needs, right? Providing that cup of water, all right? As far as your fitness is concerned, we want to be healthy for our family members. We want to make sure that we're around for a long time to be able to preach the gospel, to be able to be available for them, right? And that's ultimately how it feeds into that faith. And that's why we're talking about finances right now. This is not separated from the gospel because it's just a means to deliver it, right? All right, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. Why save for retirement is that first point. Second point, why save right now, right? It's not save later, it's save now. There's a reason why that's up there, and we're going to get into that a little bit. And then how can I save? What are the methods I can use in order to save and build that wealth so I could eventually give, right? So why save for retirement? So first off, 28% of workers aged 55 and older have less than or have $25,000 or less saved. 55 or older have less than $25,000 saved for retirement. Does that shock anybody? No? Okay. Everybody knows this already. The next stat is 43% of workers in that 55 to that 65 range have less than or have $100,000 or less dollars saved. You don't have to raise your hand, but that means almost half the people, right, have less than $100,000 saved for retirement. Why does that matter? Is $25,000, is $100,000 enough to save or to keep you in retirement? No? Okay, nobody said yes? All right. So it's not enough. And so livingcost.org is where I pulled this from, but $3,000 is the average cost of living. That includes rent, utilities, transportation, and food in Northern California. $3,000 a month, right? And so how long does it take for you to zero out $25,000? 8 months. How long for that 100,000? 2 years, 9 months. A lot longer. It's much better. But again, is there something I'm missing? Right? This is just savings. There's going to be more added to it. One of the things we all like to consider is, hey, you know what? With my savings, I might not make it, but what I can do is I can work during retirement, right? Who plans on working during retirement? Show of hands, if possible. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Some people do side jobs. That's not, recorded by the government. But as far as this is concerned, 73% of people plan on working in retirement. Out of that, only 25% are reported as earning income in retirement. That means 75% of people want to, but only 25% of people get to. Right? So that might be your plan. You might be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this. But there's things that happen. One is health, right? You might run into a health issue from 55 to 65. Put you out of commission. Now you can't work, right? Some people in here have ran into that issue, right? Or you got laid off from a job that you've had forever, and now you can't find work, or that you just can't. No one's hiring you because they're like, all right. So what do? Life expectancy. So what you're looking at as far as retirement is age 65. Why is 65 significant as far as retirement? And does everybody think they want to retire at 65? Does anybody know why 65 is significant at retirement?
Social Security.
Somebody said Social Security. Anybody else?
Medicare.
You said what? Medicare. So Social Security, full retirement age for Social Security is 67 years old, right? And that's for anybody born after 1960. So some of you guys might be like, no, that's not for me. After 1960, full retirement age for Medicare is 67 years old. Before that, it's 66 and 65. I have the years for that. I'll pull that up later. But 65 is significant because that's when Medicare kicks in. If you decide to retire before that 65, it's very expensive health care. Right? You're looking at about $400 to $800 a month on healthcare expenses if you retire before 65. After 65, you're looking at $175 to $400 a month. Dramatic drop. So that's why people say, hey, I'm going to retire at 65. But really the target is 67 because that's when you get your full retirement, right? So how long are you going to live in retirement? These two ages, you got males on the left, females on the right. 17 years is the average for a male to live after retiring at 65. For a female, 20 years, right? So you're living a long time. That 25,000, that 100,000 is not going to last that, right? And actually, if you're married, the chances of one person living to 90 years old in that relationship is about 60%, right? And then 25% to live up to 95. But there is good news. Let's see if this works. Social Security, that's the one thing I did not include. That typically averages about 40% of your pre-retirement income, right? So what does that mean? That's what you'll probably be receiving for Social Security. The maximum Social Security is about $3,822 a month, $45,000, $45,864 a year. So how does that fit into the equation? Well, if you're looking at the overall cost being about $3,000 a month, on average, people receive about $2,000 for Social Security. It's not going to cover it. And so it's still going to eat at those funds as far as $25,000 or $100,000 is concerned, right? It'll just eat at it a lot slower. You're looking at 2 years and 1 month as far as $25,000. That's how long that will last you. And 8 years and 4 months. That's how long $100,000 will last you with Social Security, right? So that does not last you that full 17 years, that full 20 years. So that's what we're talking about today. That's why we need to save. That's why we need to have savings. You're not going to get by with last second savings. Okay. So one more thing that works against you. Pastor Jesse briefly mentioned it, and that's inflation. Does anybody know what the inflation rate is on a year-by-year basis, or the average inflation rate? Any takers?
3%.
Nailed it. What's your name? Drew. Drew nailed it. It's 3%. Average inflation rate is 3%. That means today something can be $1. Next year, it'll be $1.03. All right? The thing I like to use is soda. When I was growing up, it was 99 cents. Some of y'all, it was probably 25 cents when you were growing up, right? What is it today? $2.99? For me, last time I went to Safeway, it was $3.25, right? And so that's what you're seeing as far as that creep is concerned, or that inflation. And as far as the numbers behind me are concerned, in 1999, you're looking at $400 or so for groceries. That's for 2 people. In 2024, which was last year, you're looking at $750, which is almost double, right? The expected in 2049 is going to be $1,400, right? Again, that doubling rate happening. I think it was every 25 years, doubling every 25 years, right? So that works against your dollar as far as what you have saved, right? Especially if it's not invested. If you put it in your mattress, it doesn't grow, right? If you put it into something, it does grow. Now, I'm going to talk about diversification a little bit later, because it is important to have, solid assets like gold, right? And have some cash around, right? But you still have to invest. The second piece, this is the most important one, is healthcare, right? As you can see, that's not double. That's not double. That's about triple. It grows at 4.5%, right? And so this is going to be your biggest cost. You're looking at tripling from $8,500 to $25,000 in the future, all right? And so this is why we have to kind of prepare for these things. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. All right, so now we're on why save now. Why save right now? Has anybody heard of compounding interest? Yeah? What wonder, I think it's the 8th wonder of the world. Is that how it goes? All right. But compounding interest, how does it work? Well, this is the interest that works for you. Instead of it working against you, like inflation does, this works for you. You invest, and it grows at, say for instance, that 3%, grows at 3% that first year. That next year, you take that 103 and that grows at another 3%. So you're not just getting $3, you're getting something like $3.03 back or 30 cents back, right? So, and it continues to do that, and you have that snowballing effect. So as far as this chart is concerned, you're looking at different age groups, age 25, age 35, 45, and 55. They're all investing something different, but they each end up with the same amount at age 65, and that's $400,000. Why? Well, a big component in finances is time. It's something you have a limited supply of. So the younger folks in here, they're like, oh, I don't make any money, I can't invest. No, but you have something way more valuable, and that's time. That's time. At age 25, if you invest $200 a month, this is every month from age 25 to age 65, so you're continually investing, right? You'll end up with $400,000 at the age of 65, right? And these are just estimated numbers, right? It's not exact. If you invest in different things, you might not end up with these numbers. But again, this is based off of a 6% rate of return. 35, you have to invest $400 to get to $400,000. And we'll jump to 55. You have to invest $2,440 a month to get to $400,000 by 65, because you only have 10 years to do so. Just to put that in perspective, your monthly investment is equivalent to the 25-year-old's whole yearly investment. So $200 a month times 12, $2,400. It's less than what the 55-year-old is paying for a month. So 25-year-old pays $2,400 for a whole year. 55-year-old pays that in a month. Right? And so that's the danger of not timing or not doing this early, not saving. Okay, so this is cost of waiting. This is a little different. Last time we were looking at everybody's investing different amounts. This time everybody's investing the same. It's just at different times. So if I invest $6,500, which is what this chart is telling me, on a monthly basis, starting at age 30, 33, 35, 38, all the way down to 43, this is what I can expect to yield at a 7% rate, right? Why is this significant? Because it shows you the more time you wait, the less you're gonna end up with. Just a 3-year difference, 235,000, right? I wish I would have calculated this all right. But if you wait from age 30 to age 43, you're looking at an almost $600,000 difference, right? So that's why you want to invest today, or especially if you're younger, start saving today. It's important. How can I save, right? So through all this, it's like, all right, you're telling me I need to save, telling me this is why it's important, you're showing me compound interest, but how do I do this? Well, there's multiple ways, right? You can invest, right, in the market. You can invest in things that grow in value, say for instance gold. It grows off of a scarcity principle, which means it's limited in supply, right? But here are some common ways you can invest. 401k, 403b, 457b. Has everybody heard of all of these? Yes? There's some that are no, some that are yes. Well, chances are we each have had one of these in our lifetime, right? And the most common one is that 401k. That is for private entities, right? So you have a company like Amazon or Staples or, Safeway, right? You would have a 401k with that company that you can invest in. A 403b is for nonprofits, right? And so that would be like the church. They end up in 403b, schools and hospitals. And then last but not least is that 457b, that's government entities. right? So if you're a government employee, you probably have a 457B. Each of these, maximum contribution is $23,500, right? Or 100% of your compensation, whatever is less. So if you make less than that, that's what you can contribute. As far as catch up, this is two reasons why catch up is there. One is, hey, I didn't invest when I was younger. I need to make sure I do something, right? So they allow you to invest $7,500 extra after the age of 50 or once you hit 50. But it's also for other individuals that are like, hey, you know what? I want to pad my retirement. I want to have more money when I retire. So they'll invest more as well, right? If you're maxing this out, that's awesome. I've never maxed it out myself, so kudos to you. But triggering event. This is talking about when can you pull this money out, right? If you pull this money out before 59 and a half, you get a 10% penalty, right? And you have to pay taxes on it, right? If you wait till after 59 and a half, you can pull this out, you just pay taxes on it. And that's what that early withdrawal penalty is about. An additional note, with the 457B, there actually is no penalty for pulling those funds out earlier, just so you know. So 457B, you can pull those out before 59 and a half. What has to happen is you have to be separated from that job as a government employee to pull those funds out. All right, might need somebody to help me with the slides. There we go. Okay, so simple IRA. This is a little different. Most people have not probably heard about this one. This is with smaller companies. So you're looking at 100 employees or less. Simple IRA. We also can help start these for people, but this is the contribution limits, $16,500. Catch up is $3,500. Triggering event is also 59 and a half here. But this would be for a company with 1 to 100 employees or so. And this is something that you can start to make sure your employees are covered as far as retirement. In the state of California, it is required that if you have 5 or more employees, you have to have some kind of retirement plan. This year, in December 2025, if you're a business owner, if you have 1 employee or more, you're going to be required to have a retirement plan for your employees, right? So that's something that they're putting into action this year, December 2025. So that's important so you don't get sued, all right? What it's going to look like as far as the cost associated for every employee if you don't have this retirement plan or have a retirement plan in place is $250 per employee, right? And if you wait 18 months, if you're still out of compliance, it's going to be $500 per employee that you're going to owe, all right? So it's important that you have something in place, and it helps out your employees as well as far as preparing for the future. So it's a good thing. Employer tax advantages. So what is the benefit of putting my money into a 457B or a 403B or a 401K? Well, it is pre-tax contributions, right? And it's reducible for your tax income. So how it works is you have your funds. They're not taxed. They're not taxed at all. They're put into investments and they grow. And that's that grow deferred, tax deferred. So you're not being taxed as they're growing. But when you pull them out, that's when the government comes and taxes it, all right? That's for pre-taxable income investments, and that's what a 401k, 403b, and a 457b offer, right? The reason why that's great is because your money grows and it reduces your taxable income. This is what an example looks like as far as, hey, I'm not paying as much in taxes when I contribute to one of these plans, one of these pre-tax plans. So on the left, person A, you have no contribution. Person B, you have a $100 contribution. Weekly pay, they're getting paid $2,000, or bi-weekly pay, $2,000. First person doesn't contribute anything. The second person contributes $100. What you're looking at as far as the pay that they're being taxed on, this is the important part, that third line. One person is being taxed on $2,000, the other person is being taxed on $1,900, right? Ultimately, there's only a difference of $78 in pay. How is that possible? Well, when you're being taxed less, you actually save $22, right? We can work that math if we need to. But when you contribute to a pre-tax investment, your overall income is taxed less, right? Because you're making less, right? So the government's going to take less out of what you make, all right? And those funds don't just disappear. They're actually going to be growing and making you money in the long run. You will be taxed in the end when you decide to pull it out, but again, you might be taxed at a lower rate when you're older, right? 22% is kind of high, right? That means you're actually making money. You're within a $80,000 to $120,000, what's it called, earnings in this place. So there's another way to invest, and that's Roth. Anytime you hear Roth, that's after tax contributions, after tax. So it's a little bit different than pre-tax in the sense that you take money and the government taxes it first, and then you put it in an investment, right? And it grows. Tax deferred as well. But the greatest part about this is when you pull that money out, it's not taxed. It's not taxed at all, right? So it gets taxed up front. It's not taxed on the back end. So there's a lot of opportunity with this, especially if you're looking at a higher tax bracket when you retire. Well, how can I have a higher tax bracket when I retire? Well, for the individuals that invested a lot and they want to pull out a lot of money, say for instance, you want to pull out $12,000 a month, you're looking at $144,000 a year, that puts you into the 22% tax bracket, right? If that's in a Roth, there's no tax on that. That means you're just pulling that $144,000 out like that. If you're taxed on it with the pre-tax investment, that's like $30,000, right, that you're going to be taxed. All right. So before I go on to this, there is other ways to invest, so it's not just employee contribution plans. I'm going to get into Roth IRAs towards the end. And then if you also want to just invest in the market, that's also available. Outside on that table, they do have rates as far as like what you can look at on what each different investment vehicle will earn you. That's really important because of what we're about to talk about here, risk tolerance, right? It determines what you're going to actually invest in, right? So some people are risk adverse. They don't want to take any risk. I want my money to be there when I need it. And then some people are like, you know what? I want to take all the risks. I want to see if my money can make more money, all right? And it's okay to be either or, but you have to understand how does that fit into the retirement, right? Some people cannot afford to be risk averse, right? If you're 55, 65, and you don't have much, you have to take bigger risk, right? You have to invest more. You have to do more. Your money has to be in action more in order to make up that time. If you're younger, you can be a little bit more risk averse, right? It probably won't serve you as well because as a younger person, you can afford to take risk. You can afford that drop and then it comes back up and later. But here we go. So determining your risk tolerance. There are some sheets that you have, they're risk tolerance sheets. These are the ones for this class. If you can pull those out, and if you don't have one, go back into the lobby and grab one if you want to. It's going to just help as far as understanding how this works, right? So again, it's in the lobby, it's on the table, it's a risk tolerance worksheet, and that's going to evaluate what your actual risk tolerance is, what you can handle. There's 6 questions on it, right? And I'm not going to go ahead and read through all that because I really want to get to the Q&A today. But if you look at it, you take your time, you answer those questions, it's going to give you a score, right? And with that score, it's going to show you whether you're, risk adverse or your risk tolerance. And that's going to help build out your objective or what your goal is. And we're going to talk about that. So that's what that risk tolerance questionnaire is up there. And for the folks at home, if you want a risk tolerance questionnaire, you can contact me on email and I'll send it to you. This is good for every kind of investment you have. So 401ks, 403bs, 457, it doesn't have to be with Edward Jones, right? This is helpful in the sense of a lot of you guys have 401ks, 457bs, 403bs right now, but you don't know what's in them, right? So you can have a young person with a super duper risk averse portfolio that doesn't grow for the next 40 years of their life. And then they look at it 40 years down the line and they're like, what happened? Right? You have to know how you're invested, right? Otherwise, you're going to be surprised later on. Time horizon. A big part of figuring out your objective is how much time you have, right? The more time you have, the more aggressive you can be, right? But the less time you have, you might have to be more aggressive to get to your goals. How do they work together, time horizon and your risk tolerance? Well, it's going to come down to your portfolio objective. So this is what those handouts will help you do. On the left here, you have investor risk tolerance, high to low. And on the top row, you have the age, right? Or early investing years to late retirement years. As you can see, from when you move from left to right, it becomes more conservative, right? And it's in your handouts. It becomes more conservative. And so once you figure out, hey, I'm medium, right? And I'm in my high income and saving years, what you find is, hey, I should be at a balance towards growth, right? That's going to be what your portfolio objective should look like. And so when you look at your 401k later on, when you're like, hey, you know what am I invested in? And it says, oh, I'm income focused, but you just did this risk assessment. It tells you you're balanced towards growth. You might want to update that, that investment and slide it to where it needs to be, right? Because that's going to align more with where you are in life right now, all right? But if you're like, hey, you know what, I am way more conservative than that, you can go with income focus, but this is barely going to beat inflation. This is not going to grow, all right? This is going to be very risky. Market moves up and down, you're going to be rolling with the market on that. All right. So I know this is pretty intense as far as this looks, but I'm going to show you guys two different portfolios. There is another worksheet out there that's called Building Your Portfolio if you're interested in, hey, this is how I want to build a portfolio. What does that look like? It's on the table out there, but I'm just going to show you two. One is growth focused. The other one is balanced growth and income focused. The difference between these two is going to be on this left side right here with equity investments and fixed income investments. There are other portfolios. There's income focused. Let me just go back one. So there's about 4 different types of portfolios, or 5 right here. Growth, balance towards growth and income, balance towards income and income focus. So there's 5 different types of portfolios. I'm only showing you 2. Only showing you 2 for just the sake of understanding how the portfolio works. So to help us understand what this triangle is, I like to use an analogy. It's a pie analogy. The crust of the pie, it contains everything that goes in it, right? The crust of the pie is not the taste of the pie. It's not what makes it good, right? What makes it good is the stuff inside it. So a 457B, a 401k, a 403B is the pie crust, right? It's not the actual investment, it's what you put it in, right? It's the vehicle to get the investments in something so it can, help you or satisfy you. This right here, the equity investments and the income investments is the filling of the pie, the eggs, the sugar, the fruit, right? That's going to be your composition. And here's the deal. You can use different ratios, right? Some people like to use more apples. Some people like to use more sugar, right? What that is, as far as investment is concerned, it's more stocks or more income investments like bonds, CDs, treasury bills, notes, right? Those are going to be more stable and less risk averse, right? Stocks, on that top part of the pyramid, you have aggressive, small, mid cap, and large cap. For aggressive, that's going to be overseas investments, right? That's going to be investing in Cambodia, right? That's going to be investing in a small little company over there. Very, very risky. And that's why your portfolio will always be 0 to 10%, right? Up there. Typically it's like 1% because those are very risky. Right below that, you have small and mid cap. That's going to be startup companies in the US, right? You don't know if they're going to succeed, but if they do, it's going to help you out a lot. Large cap, that's going to be the ones that you know, right? Does anybody know any large cap investments? Just shoot out a company. Apple? Yep, I heard an Apple, yes. That's a large cap, right? Amazon, Facebook, Google, all those are large cap investments. They're less risky, but they're still in the market. They're equity. They still are volatile. So if you hear something on the news, what happens? It dips, right? If you hear they created something new, it soars and everybody's like, we got to buy more. Netflix, let's go, you know? So that's how that top section works. That's equity. The bottom section is that income. It's bonds, CDs, things that you can get guaranteed rates for, right? They say, hey, you know, you invest in this CD, it's at a 4.1%. At the end of that 1 year, you're going to get that 4.1%, right? Unless there's like major issues, right? And Pastor Jesse could talk more on that. But that's how this works. Again, you have different pies. So right here where we're seeing equity investments, you're looking at 72 to 88% for growth focused, right? And that's going to be their aggressive portion. I'm going to change it up to this other one. For the balanced growth and income, a major drop. As you can see, 42 to 53% is going to be composed of stocks. The other half is going to be composed of income, right? And so that's what portfolios are. As you get further down into the income portion, it's going to be like 80% income, 20% stocks. And so that's why I use that pie analogy. Again, you have your vehicle, right, which is your actual account, the 401ks, the brokerage accounts, right, the savings, the high yield savings accounts, all those are the pie crust. Inside it are the actual investments you're investing to, the companies, the bonds, the treasuries, right? All right, so we're almost done. We've got 3 more slides and then we're out of here, or not out of here. We're going to do Q&A just for any questions that you might have on what we went over or just in the market in general. But these are 2 other options you have for investing outside of employer plans, right? And I highly recommend these because you have more control over them, right? With the employment plans, they actually hold those plans, and there's maybe about 6 or so options with them, right? You'll have, we want conservative or aggressive, right? And then you have everything in between, usually like 6 options they give you, or they give you a time, like they'll say, 2065 plan. What that means is they're planning for your retirement in 2065. What will happen is it'll start off aggressive and then it gets less aggressive over time. And that's what those plans do. All right. As far as the individual retirement account or an IRA, there's 2 different types, your traditional and your Roth. Again, that traditional, you have those funds, it's not taxed going in and it's taxed coming out. With the Roth, anytime you see Roth, that's after taxes. So you have that, you have your funds, it's taxed, it goes into the investment, and then when you take it out, it's not taxed, right? So Roth is after tax investing, right? You get taxed first, and traditional is before tax investing, okay? And then last but not least is that employer-sponsored plans. Outside of this, you have your regular brokerage funds. So if you have like Robinhood or Vanguard or even Edward Jones, these are non-retirement funds. You can put it in there and it's more liquid. You can pull it right out, right? Of course, if you make money on that, you have capital gains tax that you incur, either short or long term, right? We can talk about that stuff later on down the line. And what's it called? Beyond that, what else you got? Yeah. So that's the other way you can invest. And then there's other vehicles that we're going to be talking about in the future as well, right? Like trust and things like that. So next steps. So we're at the end of our slides. As far as me, I'm going to circle back to what I was stating in the beginning. I'm a financial advisor. What I do is I help advise people with their goals, what their wants, what their needs are, create a plan for that, and then ultimately partner with them for the rest of their life and making sure that happens. All right. If you can today, complete that risk tolerance questionnaire. I don't need it back from you. That's yours to keep. It helps you identify that investment objective and come away from this with something so you can look back at your employment retirement plans. And then last but not least, if you guys want to, you can reach out to me, ask me questions. It costs nothing to set up some time with me just to kind of talk through some things. As far as giving investment advice, when we're about to do this Q&A, I can't give specific advice to individuals because I have to understand the whole picture, right? I ask those prying questions because just like a fitness coach, it's one of those things where I'm evaluating. I'm like, hey, what's your goal? You want to gain 10 pounds of muscle? Okay. Well, here's the plan for that. But somebody else might come in and say, I want to lose weight. And so with finances, it's the same way. You come in with your specific issue, right, that needs a specific plan for it in order to get specific results, right? So, one more slide for you, and then we'll jump into that Q&A. All right, so my face once again. This is where, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for dealing with me. My name is Dukan Salander. I'm a financial advisor. You can give me a call at 650-343-0700 if you want to chat. That's my email. And then my actual office is in San Mateo, so it's across the bridge right over there. So if you ever want to stop in, my cards are out there. And then as far as like what Edward Jones does, that's also out there. So now we want to open it up for Q&A. So let's do it.
First of all, you guys justify your lunch by giving Duke a round of applause. For something that is fundamentally boring, but necessary. So this is the part that I like about anything. I like to find out whether or not you guys are active listeners or passive listeners. So this is Q&A time. Any question goes. We'll go for about 15 minutes, and then we'll close out. You can ask Duke questions, or you can ask me. Hand over here, hand right here. Cut the mic on for them because they have a hard time finding the knob.
Hi, Duke.
Hello.
Question for my kids that are, working now. The 401s that are the personal ones, or maybe I got that wrong,
No,
but in
go
any
ahead.
event, are those able to port from job to job to job, or
Okay.
do they have to close them, then reopen another one?
Okay, yeah. So a 401k is company held, right? But on your question, do they port from job to job? The answer is yes, they can. They can port from job to job. This thing called a rollover, right? 401k rollover. There's two ways you can roll it over. One, you can roll it 401k to 401k, so from job to job. So you go from one company to the next, you roll that over. You want to do that within 60 days, right? Otherwise, there is a penalty there. Somebody takes your money, right? Not gonna say who, but your money is taken if you don't roll that over. Also, you can roll that over into an individual retirement account, right? And it's gonna have to match whatever that 401k is, because there is Roth 401ks and there's traditional 401ks. So you roll it over into a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, and that gives you more control over it. And so, yeah.
There was a question over there. There we go.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
So I have a question. What is your management fees for this?
Okay. So as far as my management fees are concerned, for a brokerage account, there's 0 fee on that. And so what a brokerage account is you put your money in there, and it's a wait and hold strategy typically, right? So say for instance, you want to buy a CD, right? There's no management fee for that. You pay for the cost of transaction, right? So if you buy the CD, I get paid a portion of that, right? And it's different based off of each investment, right? But that's with every brokerage you're ever going to deal with. So if you have a Robinhood app, that's how they get paid in that app, right? As far as what's it called, advisory services, right? We have 2 different advisory services. There's a hands-off one where you don't have to do anything. You put your funds in, I manage it, work with my team, and work with investment advisors, et cetera, on making sure that your funds are to your objective, right? Again, that's where it comes into that specific objective. But that's the do-it-yourself plan, and then in the middle, that's the full delegation, and then in the middle we have like partnering, right? But both of those are 1.4%, right?
Are you guys a fiduciary
Yes, I am a fiduciary.
on your CD?
So that's a trick question right there. I like that question. So with the brokerage accounts, we do not operate as fiduciary. But whenever we enter into that relationship where I'm, getting paid 1.4% on the account, that is a fiduciary relationship where I have to have your best interest in mind, right? And we are held by law to do so, right? Where we put your interest ahead of ours. And that's what fiduciary is, all right, for anybody that wanted to know. So yes, I am a fiduciary. I'm a financial advisor with certifications to do so.
One other question, and that was on your CDs, is there a minimum amount?
There is officially no minimum, but $1,000 is your face value for a CD, right? But yeah, if you want to invest in a CD, it's one of those things where you say, hey, CD, and I have the rates out there. Last rate I quoted was like 4.1%. Oh, yeah, for a year it was 4.15%, but I'm not sure what it's out there. But yeah, so no official minimum. It's just one of those things where come in, we talk about it. Is that the best investment for you? If you're just, I want a CD, okay, then we'll put you in a CD. All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, I have 2 questions. The first one is, seeing how we're in this environment of like unsure about how even money is going to be acting in the future, or digital or not, how is it still safe to invest?
Has it ever been safe to invest? Right.
Testing, 1, 2.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's a valid question, right? Anytime you invest, there's a risk associated with it. I actually talk about risk extensively, so you understand what you're getting into when you decide to invest. With that aggressive individual, they're like, yeah, I really want to be in the stock market, but can you handle, say for instance you invest $100,000, can you handle your funds dropping from $100,000 to $75,000?
Right.
Right? It's always possible in any given year, right? Over time, we're looking at like a 5 to 8% return for the aggressive portfolios, but in any given year, it can drop about 25%. It's like, can you stomach that? And that's why a lot of people will go on the other side of the spectrum and say, I'm risk averse. I don't want that. And so you have like maybe a 10% drop, right? Okay. But it's always a risk to invest. As far as where the market's going over the next 5 years, I'm not God. I pray about it. I'm praying I'm doing the right thing right now. But my job is to teach, right? And then see what you want to do, right? And then invest accordingly, right? And help you get to your goal. Yeah, so.
Okay. Yeah. My second question is, so if you're an older person, is there a possibility to still invest effectively or efficiently?
Yes. So there's always a possibility to invest effectively, efficiently, right? It's just a matter of we have to have realistic goals. And that's what we have conversations about, right? Where if you wait till, say for instance, an extreme scenario, you're 65 years old with $0, right? And you don't have an income. Well, what can we do? What can we do? There's 3 things you can always do. 1, as that individual, you can make more money, right? You can work longer if you already have a job, right? Or you can save more, right? So we have to work with what you have, and we create a plan based off of that, right? And so there's always something that we can do to help, and sometimes that doesn't even require me, right? At some, incomes, at some, levels of savings, it's just saying, hey, this is what you need to do, and then you go and make that happen, right? But yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm not really sure how to word this question, but it's a combination of questions. The first question is, can you tell us how people protected their income during the Great Depression? And the second question is, how people can now protect their income in case the economy crashes?
Okay. For the first question, how did they protect their income during the Great Protection? I can't answer that because I didn't study that in particular, but I know the second part I can answer, right? How do you protect your income, right? It's called diversification, right? Diversification. Simply put, not putting all your eggs in one basket, right? It's to spread out how you invest money or what you do with your money, right? Some of you guys already do that just naturally, right? If you have a house, that's a part of diversification. That's a physical asset you own. There's money in that, there's equity. So if you need to take a loan on that, you have that, right? Then you have your stocks, right? Some of them are liquid, you have them in a brokerage account. Then you have your retirement account, right? Beyond that, you have gold. Beyond that, you have cash. That's all diversification. So just in case something does get hit, say for instance the housing market, 2008, right? Well, I still have these other investments that are still doing okay, right? And so you're not impacted as much by one thing that fails, right? And so with folks that probably came out of the Great Depression, it's one of those things where, they might have been diversified, right? If they had all their money in stocks, well, then they felt it. They really felt it, right? So I know that was one of the biggest problems. Everybody was like, stocks are awesome. Like, let's just invest. It can't fail. It cannot fail. And that's why you have people jumping off of buildings, right? So.
One other question. Do you think it's probable that the business of insurance will fail at any point?
I can't say that all insurance will fail or anything like that, but I can say there are insurance brokers that do fail, right? It is a possibility. It's unlikely for a lot of them, right? But some of them with less financially responsible methods are able to fail, right? Just the same as banks, right? Banks can fail too, right? But it's one of those things, we have this trust in these institutions that may or may not be founded. It's really about understanding the investment you're making, understanding with the credit that you're investing with, are they actually a good company to invest in, right? Because there's many insurance brokers that pop up one day and then they're gone the next. Well, how is that possible, right? It's because they leverage against their bottom line too much, right? They can't pay out those claims that are coming on them, right? So they either just won't pay it out, right? Or they get sued and then they have to fold it in, right? So.
My last question is, if a person has, let's say $100,000 and they want to put it in a relatively safe place, would you recommend that they place it in an annuity?
Is $100,000 all they have? Is that their whole?
No.
Okay. So that's, I'm going to talk about relative safe place, and then I'm going to talk about annuity. And so annuities, or let's talk about relatively safe place first. As far as relatively safe places are concerned, we're talking about income investments, right? Treasury, CDs, right? And then, what's it called? Like, it's REITs, which is real estate investment trust, right? Those are relatively safer, right? They're almost guaranteed a return, right? But they still have risk associated. There's less risk, right? So you can always say, hey, I want 100,000 in a CD for a 4% return, right? What you're gonna get is $4,000 back at the end of the year, right? There's also 3-month CDs, 6-month, 9-month, et cetera, right? But again, they have risk, and I'll let Pastor Jesse talk about the risk of what's coming down the road, et cetera. With annuities in particular, one of the things that I advise people on is how much should you invest in an annuity? The reason why I asked you is $100,000 all they have. It's because you don't want to put everything in an annuity, right? There's different types of annuities. It's a landmine, right? Where there's like, a bunch of ways to get trapped, right? But if you choose the right ones, it will benefit you. That's why they still have annuities out there, right? So the rule at Edward Jones is we only do 30%. So your whole net worth has to be $300,000 in that example, right? For you to invest $100,000 into an annuity. Why? Because annuities are not liquid. If you need funds from an annuity, you can't just go in and grab it, right? There's a surrender charge, right? And that actually decreases over the years, but it's either 10% or it could be higher depending on what your annuity deal is, right? So we want to make sure you're still able to pay for the things that just happen, right? And that was something that I actually did not talk about, but sometimes things just happen. Medical bills come out of nowhere. Fires happen, right? Landslides, earthquakes, floods, insurance doesn't come through. Tons of stuff can happen. And so with an annuity, if you have 100% of your funds locked into an annuity, yeah, you're getting a steady amount of pay. It looks like a pension, really. So if anybody wants to know what an annuity is, it's like a pension that you plan for yourself, right? You're getting the steady flow of money back, but if something were to happen, you can't just withdraw all your funds. There's a surrender charge, so be safe about how you invest in an annuity. It is a good investment vehicle, but you have to choose the right one too. There's some that annuitize. That's a buzzword. Personally, there's other ways to do it, right? And that's something that I could talk to you about if you're interested. So, but just try to avoid the pitfalls, talk to someone who actually cares instead of, financial advisors get paid a lot for putting people in annuities, right? They get paid a lot for, these trickier investments because there's a lot of complications with them, right? The simple ones like term insurance and CDs and stuff, you don't get paid as much for, but they're on the safer side of the house. But if you really want to invest in like an annuity or, whole life, insurance, just talk to someone that actually cares about you, and that's the important thing, because if someone's trying to sell you into that, personally I wouldn't do it. So yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Okay, as a person, preferably at my age level, I've gone through those ups and downs throughout life, personal, health-wise, took great losses in the process. And due to the fact that the way the economy is right now and the world situation, the dollar being as weak as it's getting right now, would it be a safe for someone, preferably at my age category, as far as investing, would it be a safe bet to maybe invest in precious metals, something that is going to fluctuate with the way the world situation is going, and it can only get higher on return because of the way the world is going?
Okay, so I can't answer specific questions, right? Because I could get in trouble being like, oh, I gave specific advice to all of you, right? with a specific scenario. In your specific scenario, it may or may not be something that is good for you. It would be about understanding your entire financial picture and then creating a plan specific for you, right? There's some non-financial advisors that just give, shotgun advice. It's like, yeah, it'd be a great idea to invest in gold, right? That may not be the case. It depends on what you in your specific situation are doing, right? Diversification is always a good idea, though. Diversification is always a good idea. So have some gold, have some cash, have some investments, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with me telling you that, right? But I would have to understand more to be able to give you that advice and to be like, that's the right thing for you, right? So.
All right, my brother. It's on.
Okay.
You just cut it off.
Okay, you spoke on 401ks. Is there a certain amount that a company has to, like certain amount of people that they have to have before they get penalized, or is it, and how does that play out between LLCs and one member LLCs, and they decide to hire at least one person compared to corporations? Do they have to have a certain amount of employees?
Yes, so I briefly mentioned it earlier, but let me see if I can pull up, so I actually pulled this information the other day. Nope, I don't have it. All right, so as far as employers having to have a retirement account or plan, right? Because 401ks are typically for larger companies, right? Smaller companies don't necessarily need to have a 401k, but they need to have something in place. Right now, it's currently at 5 employees. If you have 5 or more employees, you have to have an employment plan in place. But by December 2025, if you have 1 employee, right, you have to have an employment plan in place, or I think it's called CalSTARS. See, and that's what there's an alternative program that California offers that you can enroll into as well if you don't want to create your own retirement plan. I have to get that name back to you, and I will before this is over. But it's a California plan, it's Cal something. And what that allows is for the employees to invest in Roth IRAs with their income from the job, right? And so that's what's required if you're not going to create your own retirement plan, especially after this year, 2025, it will be mandatory with 1 employee. That does not include an LLC that you are the only person working on. You don't have to be an employee. You're just an owner, right? It's when you have someone working for you, right? But you want to set up your own retirement plan anyway. So, yeah.
So one more question. So in regards to a LLC, let's say you're a 1-member LLC, but you decide to hire later on down the line. Would that still apply?
Yes. As soon as you hire another person, and again, 1 member, it's one of those things where if you are an employee of your own company, you're required to have that retirement, right? But if you're just the owner, there's no employees, you registered as 0, you don't, right? But as soon as you get that next employee, now you're required by policy, by law, to have something in place in 2025. Right now, you're still good to go up into 5 employees, right? But again, things like this help the employee out, right? Understanding retirement and understanding how to save for it. Without having that, it's one of those things where you work 20, 30 years and don't have anything to show for it at the end because no one told you about how to invest yourself, or I can invest through my company, right? And so the law has actually mandated 401ks at this point because of, people not saving for retirement and not caring about their employees, right? So.
All right, we're going to do 2 more. We're going to go with James, and then David. Who else? All right. All right, go ahead on, Drew.
I just real quick with comments. I knew the 3% educated guess because that's when I was working for the government. They had to give us a 3% raise every year.
Okay, yep.
And then on your numbers, I know it might be older just for people with mortgages, but right now in the market, maybe because it's summertime, studios are $2,500 and one bedrooms are $2,900.
Yeah.
So
absolutely
numbers fluctuated. And I forgot what else I was going to comment on, but if any of you guys not trying to promote like movies, but The Beekeeper, Felicia Rashad's in the first like 5 minutes, and she talks about all her diversifications, and it's just a good movie to watch at least the first 15 minutes. You can probably YouTube it, but that's it.
Good deal. Yeah. To Drew's point, as far as those numbers, as far as like costs are concerned, I did pull them off of livingcost.org, and it can get a lot higher. I wanted to use a number that we could actually use because, some people pay way more than $3,000. What determines how long you're going to last in retirement? A portion of it is your expenses or how fast you burn through money. Some people live off $1,000 a month, which, it's possible, but what you're not paying is rent. You typically own a house or something, but there's other costs that are there, right? But some people burn through, $15,000 a month, right? With a family of 4, you're looking at $7,000 a month, right? That's just the average, right?
So that's why I talked about those 5 categories with their adjectival expression, and I'll develop that in the future because a lot of these are textbook questions you guys are asking, and they're actually framed around a system that's already set up. It's all cool to hear all that, but we're in much deeper, more acute, serious problems that are spiritual and practical in nature, for which I'm very concerned about the way people think. I'll talk about that a little bit before we close, okay? So I'll have James, and then I'll have Dolores, and then Gigi. She's a baby. She's last. You all right, David?
Yeah.
Who?
He asked me when she had Alex.
What?
He answered the question when she asked her.
Okay. All right. Go ahead on, James.
And this question may be one that you and PJ are tagged.
You gotta pull it. Just put it closer. Put it closer to your mouth.
About to swallow it. Okay. So, I guess what my concern is based on the movie from David Webb. The issue with limited liability and maiden lane, and these changes that were made to the Uniform Commercial Code that actually seemed like it made J.P. Morgan the thieves over a lot of the retirement accounts that happened like 15 years ago, 2008. Has Edward Jones done anything to safeguard themselves from that, or is that a question for another time?
Wait, repeat that one more time.
Well, these questions are coming from the video from David Webb, we were talking about earlier, and there were some terms and there were some things that I was concerned about that seemed to cause the crash back in 2008. It seemed like J.P. Morgan was directly or indirectly involved with, where through all 50 states there was changes made to the Universal Commercial Code that, in essence, there was a time. Let me see if I can explain this the best way I can. When a person like myself would invest, make an investment, if the company went belly up, you could then move your funds to another, say from where, like I did, move my funds from where I was with you, okay? So according to where I understood the presentation, what the Uniform Commercial Code did was, in all 50 states, they made it to where they quietly passed laws that where once, if that was to happen again, basically our funds went with it. In other words, the customers' funds, the investment funds went with it. So in a sense, I think it was a case of insolvency. Now, maybe I need to go back and watch it again, but it didn't seem well. It seemed basically, we were the ones left holding the ball. We didn't have any money. They made their money. They were gone. and that was it.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to let PJ answer that, but I can tell you what has happened since 2008 as far as like protective measures for individuals, right? And so there's two things that were enacted, and that's the fiduciary as well as best interest, right? And so as an advisor myself, right, I think these are great things, right? Where we have to, by law, act in a way to serve our customer at their best interest, right? And it's not about what I make, it's about, is this actually good for them, right? And so now you have a situation where if it's not, if they can figure out like, hey, what you just did as a financial advisor is actually not good for them, and we have a record of it, you can sue, right? And so that's more available now than it was then. But as far as like what you're asking, I can't give specifics on the details of JP Morgan, nor like what Edward Jones has done to address that, but PJ might be able to.
Well,
That'll be a homework for him.
A homework for me, okay. First of all, I just want to say it was a hypothetical. I was trying to get the question out, but
yeah.
By all means, I personally have, you already know, I signed up with you as soon as you made some pointers out, so I encourage anyone, put your name in the box and sign up, because you go over there to his office, he'll take you through it. I had to laugh at myself, because there was no way I could see that, and I didn't get the handouts, but sitting in your office, looking at the screen, it made it all come, you made it all come to life. I just want to thank you for that publicly.
I appreciate that.
You done? Okay.
I want to talk about 401ks.
The golf course.
Employer with 5 people, you say have to have a 401k now?
No, not a 401k. There's different in, what's it called? Employment retirement plans, right? You have SEP IRAs, you have simple IRAs, you have 401ks. There's different retirement income plans, and we'll probably talk about that at a later time. It's a lot of information in financials. A lot of information. I can only go over the tip of the iceberg right now.
Is that just for California, or is it?
That's well. So as far as that, the requirement is concerned, that's just for California, as far as I'm aware. But definitely every state has their own, requirements as far as retirement plans are concerned. So, but yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead on, Gigi, so we can shut it down.
I have 3 questions. I'll try to make it quick. Thank you, Pastor Jesse and Duke, for doing this. I wish this is something we had in school.
Your mic.
Sorry. So how should I prioritize my student loan repayment versus saving and investment? Okay. I feel like it's kind of like a teeter-totter because I'm currently still trying to finish school. Me personally, I feel like my debt should pay it off first. But then therefore, I do want to save as well. So I'm having trouble with those 2 concepts.
Okay. So as far as student loans versus debt, right? Again, that's going to get into specifics, right? And I'm actually going to, well, one, I'm glad you brought up, I wish I would have been taught this in high school. Most of the people I come across, I'm like, hey, have you ever been taught any of this? They're like, no, right? I wasn't. Right? I had to learn this myself, but it's one of those things that's invaluable. Hopefully there's more young people that come through and learn these, what's it called? These beneficial kind of financial literacies for their future. But as far as your specific situation that has a specific answer, what would have to happen is, well, what is the interest rate on that debt, right? What is the interest rate on the student loans? When can you pay that back, right? Is it better to invest? Are you receiving more that you would in investment than you would be as far as paying back these loans, or your interest rate is concerned? So if you have like for instance, a credit card rate of like 26% interest, which is possible, right? That's something that has a higher priority than, a lot of people ask about houses. Well, if you have a 3.5% interest rate on a house, it's like that's not as big as priority, right? You can invest and maybe get a 5% back, and so you can probably take that investment and pay off some of that, right? So it really depends on your unique scenario. You'd have to drill down into, well, what does it cost? When can you pay things back? How do you optimize what you're earning versus what you're spending? And that's a math equation. So, yeah.
All right, good. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Can I do
Oh, you got one more?
Yeah, just one more. I just want to clarify, because I came in a little late, the plan for the 5-fold tips on there on the board, they have to be in order, right? Because
So I want to reiterate that and help bring some clarity here. And we're going to shut it down, then we'll pick it up next time. So these are all classical questions. They're very good. If you have worked for somebody, you kind of know some of these terms. You understand what Duke is saying in terms of the fundamentals of really investing. And a lot of investment models are set up for you in the company you work for. That's also what you're hearing. This is true about insurance companies. James's concern has to do with the government ensuring that it has your money before you have your money. No insurance company is going to be honest about that. I'm gonna let you know now. That would be Edward and Jones as well, because there's an aspect of the government above the insurance companies that are working at the larger international banking level, because the money is going to be governed to make sure that whatever real crash occurs, they can remain solvent. In their mind, they're thinking that they're upholding the world economically. So we cannot be their first priority. We cannot be. That's logical. Does that make sense? You and I cannot be. We have to be the ones taking the hit, suffering the collateral damage of, unintended consequences or intended consequences, which is going to take me back to my fundamental principles. If we don't orient ourselves to understand that I am the one responsible for my economic future, then I'm going to be ready to default myself to somebody else's system, which may work, but may not work. Okay, and everything that Duke is saying is fine within the framework of if you operate within these systems. What I'm warning us is about economic slavery predicated upon those set of assumptions that you have to constantly test and poke, because they have their flaws. Like Alice was talking about, how can I protect my $100,000? Is there anything safe? Safe is relative. That's what he stated. Safe is relative. Safe is like, well, maybe you can get some interest earnings on that $100,000, but in all likelihood, if everything crashes, you're going to have problems with that too. So we got to circle back to, first and foremost, in my opinion, you got to be radically committed to making money. Earning is number one. Earning is number one. That's the way God set it up when he started in the beginning. He didn't talk to Adam and Eve about an insurance policy. Earning money. You have to have the capacity for that. We can stratify that across a number of things in the future, which is about relationship, and which is about the capacity to make money many different ways, so that you aren't just making money to shovel it into a vehicle. Did you hear what I just stated, sis? And he talked to you about the virtue that young people have, because I started at 25. Because someone came to me at 25 and said, you need to understand how money works to take care of your family. Now, you remember he was talking about save now? Well, that's where I started. And once my eyes were open to, my earnings have to start with me using my money for my own best interest. So you're making money in order to use that money to preserve your well-being into the potential for retirement. That's what that whole 5 cycle is about. So you have to be committed to earning. This here is axiomatic for young people, because basically the shield for young people is your health, your mentality, your energy level, your motivation, your drive. Don't let anybody take that from you, right? So you don't get trapped by anything, because you got all the energy to do it. You can make tons of money, you know this, as a nurse. So your mindset is going to be, once you get out of school, I don't care how much the debt is. I'm just going to preach out for 5 minutes and then close. The debt doesn't matter. What matters is making sure that when you earn money, you pay yourself first. You create your own banking system first. You put some money in something that's going to grow for you first. First. Because you're paying everybody else. So that debt can sit over there with all kind of different variables in terms of interest rates. We'll get to that later. We're going to make sure that we have a pot of secure income for ourselves at the basic now level, and that we are investing that money wisely enough to see that that money can grow to outrun inflation, and then to also outrun my debt costs that got me into this career. Right? But what I'm doing is saying that you don't want to start off in a slave mentality. I owe, so off to work I go. You do owe, but that cannot be number one. Number one has to be God has given me an apparatus of health and strength and energy and skill sets and relationships. So let me go earn and then make sure I invest that money wisely across these other categories. Because Gigi and everybody else listening to me, we're done here. Ain't nobody coming to get you. They're not going to throw you in jail for that debt for school. They're not coming. You got time. The future may have situations which I am fully convinced will occur, where the government is going to forgive all kinds of debts because they've done it in the past, because they've had to. Don't let me go down that rabbit hole, because really what's going on is they're confiscating so much money from us that they're spending it frivolously across all kinds of just abominable things. Can you imagine that? Right, so I just want you to understand that what you want to not feel like is that somehow you are an indentured servant because of the way the system is set up. What they don't want you to do is operate out of an autonomy that says pay yourself first. Because see, what you want to do is you want to have a relationship with God economically where you are working for Him. Amen. And He's working with you. And in many ways, philosophically, that's going to be contrary to the structures set up that's telling you to invest in these 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways, which over time can be helpful to you, but it's going to be more helpful to that institution, and it's going to be more helpful to the government. I, as your pastor, need you to know that. I don't want you to sleep on the way this system is set up. And the other thing that I stated earlier, the sooner you grapple with scaling these models of business strictures and understanding an entrepreneurial mindset, the sooner you understand entrepreneurism in regards to your gift and how that can exponentiate your income in a way in which you can pay everything down and be living in front of all of these drudgerous struggles, the sooner you figure that out, the sooner you will be walking in the inheritance that God gave you. Because they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to do that. But I do, and God does. Because you guys are the next line of defense. And Duke can't say it, but I can, because I'm a pastor and I'm free to say it. I do see what's coming. I do see what's coming. And every honest financial advisor sees what's coming. The honest ones. They don't see anything of some overwhelming open door for all kind of economic boom for people across the stratum of struggle. They don't see that. Because they know we have messed up this system so bad that we absolutely have to hit a crisis point for a radical change. And that next level of change, they know, has to be something that they're in control of. Okay? So what you and I want to do is do what the Bible would say to us intuitively: build your house upon a solid rock. Yep. And be ready for any kind of storm that comes. What we're talking about here is a right thing to do, but it's not the only thing to do. So that's why we're both having this conversation, and I'm talking to you about a biblical worldview in terms of your obligation before God, and then how to merge it with some of these systems that can take some of your money and help protect it as it grows in these different models. And the big word that Duke talked about is diversify. Right, so take that term diversify, because that's what the companies would do. And this is not an Edwards and Jones program. I want you to know, we're not sneaking up on you with Edwards and Jones. He's Edward and Jones, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm something else. I'm something else. But what I'm not here to do is tell you what that something else is today. Because there are many different companies that are engaged in dealing with monies, right? I happen to love the company that I'm with, and several of us do. But we're not telling anybody to invest with anybody here. That's not the point. What I want you guys to do is be wise about your stewardship. And so next month, we'll be getting back into this, and I'm going to actually be poking holes in the presupposition of the banking system. Because if our banking systems are fraught with problems, the insurance companies, all of these investment companies are susceptible too. They're downstream. Y'all got to know that. Do you hear me? Y'all got to know that. Let me pray for us and get us out.
PJ, before you close out, two things. Next month, we're going to be talking about budgeting, right? So it kind of feeds into what he's talking about, where it's like, how do you pay yourself? Well, we're going to be talking about budgeting. And then the second thing on that table, there's some feedback sheets. I like that. You don't have to put your name on it either, just for me to get better at this. And so hopefully we keep doing this and I keep getting better.
Put QAnon on there. And I'm hoping next month you guys will come back out and actually have more rigorous questions. The questions are the key. Asking the right questions are the key. Okay, we got to be able to see outside of the box and know what God has for us in terms of what it's going to take to make it into the future. And I'm going to give you another word. This is about relationship. The word is relationship. If you're feeling like you are an individual, isolated person that's not connected to anything that would constitute opportunities for wisdom, the first thing you need to do is find people that can speak into your life. And then secondly, get with people who would be peer-oriented around creativity and motivation to think outside of the box and operate in co-op systems, which is what I'm doing right now with some of my younger guys. Because this is about being able to help each other when the storms come. Does that make sense? Right. You can have your own little life raft, but in reality, the way that I can take it back to what Alice said. Forgive me, I'm gonna run you out of here. But the way they made it through the depression, Great Depression, is they weren't stupid enough to put all their money in the bank. I've already told you about that. Haven't I talked to you about that? People are scared to hold on to their own money. Then Duke talked about what was historically fundamental: gold, silver, precious metals. That was grandpa. That ain't changed. Just people are not doing it today because the institutions are making a route from your paycheck that doesn't even come into your own hand into the system. They're circumventing you even having a little time with your own money to figure out, what kind of relationship you want to have with your own money. Am I making some sense? I don't want you to be economic slaves. I don't want you to do that. Think it through. I was 25 years old. I had Rachel, Olivia, and Renee. Me and Bar was just a young couple, crazy, didn't know nothing about life. In the hood, down Fruitville Avenue. That's when there was like an invasion of my Latina brethren. They just flooded in here. I don't know what year that was, Duke. I don't even know if you were born. How old are you, Duke? Let me see. Oh, okay, hold on. Duke was not born yet. So you talking to old brother. He was just about to be born. I don't know where his mom is. She's somewhere around. He was not born yet. But this is when the world changed in terms of geopolitics, and there was a massive flood of Latinas that came in. Now, I've always been connected with my Latina brothers for all kind of reasons, but what we both know in the hood is whether Latina or black, if you turn your back, you'll get ripped off. Don't we know that? And that's what opened my eyes to the uncertainty of riches, which is one of the points, one of the Bible points I didn't address. Why set your eyes on that which is not, that takes wings and fly away? So a proper understanding of finances is critical to make sure you go to sleep at night and get up every day understanding the nature of money. Money is designed to come and go. And as easy as it goes, it can come if you have a system. You guys understand that? What you don't do is become a worshiper of unrighteous mammon. It's a tool. If you handle that tool well, God will take care of you. I promise you we'll press into that more fully, because there's a lot of stuff you need to know in order to do what Jesus said, and that is to build your economic house upon a rock, because the storms are coming. All right, Father, thank you for your mercy and your goodness. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the class. Thank you for the folks that came out. So honored that people care. So honored that people care. Bless them with greater answers, deeper insight, and particularly our downline, Lord, our young people. We just want them to be so equipped and so ready to do your will. And we thank you for Duke's labors as well. Looking forward to more classes in the weeks to come. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.